Hey dude, you won't believe all the crazy stuff that's been happening with Ripple and XRP lately. Let me just sit down and tell you everything, step by step, like we're chilling and chatting about it. First off, people are going nuts talking about whether Ripple is going to do an IPO really soon. There's all this buzz because some big banks have started putting out fresh evaluations of how much Ripple is worth right before this possible IPO. One of the biggest ones that just came out says Ripple is valued at $11.3 billion. Yeah, you heard that right, 11.3 billion. And this isn't coming from some random little company. It's from DBS Bank, which is the largest bank in Southeast Asia. They're headquartered in Singapore and they've been a customer of Ripple for a really long time, so when they put out a number like that, it actually means something. It's not surprising to a lot of people who've been following this space. The guy who made the video I was watching was saying he thinks we're gonna see even more evaluations from other banks in the next 6 to 12 months, and in his personal opinion, those numbers are probably gonna come in higher and higher as Ripple keeps getting more valuable. He believes the price of XRP could really shoot up because of all this growing interest. The CEO of Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse, has already said publicly that they're targeting an IPO in 2026, so everyone is seeing this DBS valuation as a strong signal that traditional banks are starting to get more confident in what Ripple is doing, especially in the cross-border payments world. Ripple is basically trying to challenge the old SWIFT system that banks have used forever to send money between countries. When a big respected bank like DBS comes out and says Ripple is worth $11.3 billion, a lot of people in the finance world are taking it seriously. It feels like traditional banking is slowly opening its doors to blockchain technology. Let me tell you about this short clip that the video showed. It was only about 25 seconds long, but it was pretty interesting. David Schwartz was talking. He's one of the top people at Ripple, the chief technology officer. Someone asked him what kind of new use cases he hopes people will start building on the XRP ledger. He explained that the XRP ledger was made from the beginning to solve specific financial problems. It already has things like a built-in decentralized exchange, issued assets, escrows, and soon it will have better support for loans. He said all the major financial stuff that people need can be handled through native transactions on the ledger. Then he dropped something cool. He said once Ripple becomes more like a real bank, they could start taking on regular customers, people like you and me, if they decide to do that. That would open up a whole bunch of new utilities. For example, imagine being able to put your XRP in some kind of escrow at Ripple's bank and then borrow US dollars against it. That sounds pretty neat, right? He even mentioned that it would be awesome if Ripple could become a lender of last resort. Back in the years between 2015 and 2020, that was actually one of the things Ripple talked about the most. They really wanted to be in a position where they could help when other places couldn't lend money. The video host was saying he likes to ask this question every few weeks or so. What are the biggest real-world financial use cases for XRP right now? He wants to keep checking if anything new has popped up or if anything has changed. The number one thing that keeps coming up is using XRP as a bridge currency for cross-border payments. We hear about this one all the time, so he didn't spend too long on it, but it's still super important. Then there's on-demand liquidity. If Ripple actually becomes a full financial institution, banks will feel a lot more comfortable working with them because once you're a bank talking to another bank, there's already a high level of trust. Banks have to go through tons of checks and verifications to prove they have the money and everything is legit. So if Ripple becomes a bank, it would make them look like a real, trustworthy partner in this whole new blockchain-based financial world. Another big use case is institutional settlements and treasury management. Big banks and financial institutions can use XRP to settle huge transactions really fast. We're talking just 3 to 5 seconds, and the fees are tiny. That's a game changer when you're moving millions or billions around. Then he talked about micropayments. Because XRP has such low fees and can handle so many transactions quickly, it could be perfect for tiny payments. Think about this. Have you ever wanted to read just one single article on a news website, but they force you to sign up for a whole month or even 6 months? What if you could just pay 20 cents, 25 cents, or 50 cents for that one article you actually care about? Right now, traditional payment systems make those small payments too expensive because of all the fees, but with XRP, companies could sell little pieces of their content or products, and if enough people do those small buys, it could add up to real money for the company. There's also ongoing talk about XRP's potential role in central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, and even as part of national reserves. Some people think it could become a strategic reserve asset, which might unlock trillions of dollars in value for countries or big institutions. Getting rid of those old Nostro and Vostro accounts is a really big deal too. Those are the special accounts banks keep in foreign countries just to make international payments easier. If XRP can help remove the need for those, it would save banks a ton of money and time. After going through all those use cases, the video jumped to a clip from Jake Chervinsky. Someone asked him what would actually need to happen for XRP to reach $2,500. Jake bought some XRP himself, so he was talking from experience. He made it very clear that it's not as simple as people think. A lot of folks online say just flip a switch and it'll happen, but he says that's nonsense. There would have to be major global macroeconomic events that create a real supply shock. It all comes down to basic supply and demand economics. People always look at the total market cap, but what really drives the price is how much XRP is actually available for people to buy on the market at any given time. Liquidity and market dynamics matter a lot. The person asking the question wondered if they can just make more XRP whenever they want. Jake explained, no, they can't. Originally, back on June 2 of 2012, they created 100 billion XRP, it was called XNS at the very beginning. That whole amount got put into an account that was then blackholed, meaning nobody has access to it anymore. They can never mint any extra XRP. Nobody can freeze anyone's XRP either. The total supply is locked at 100 billion, and on top of that, around 5,000 XRP get burned every single day because of transaction fees. That makes XRP one of the only deflationary assets on the planet, besides something like uranium. Every day there's a tiny bit less available, which over time can make the remaining coins more valuable. The video host mentioned he did a whole video recently looking at numbers from 2024 into 2025, and XRP has been disappearing from big exchanges like Binance and Coinbase. People are pulling their coins off the exchanges and holding them personally on a massive scale. He thinks a lot of people are underestimating how much this low liquidity on exchanges could affect the price. When there's less supply available to buy easily, even normal buying pressure can push the price up faster than you'd expect. Then he moved on to some fresh partnership news that just dropped. Ripple has teamed up with Tenity, that's a global fintech incubator, to launch an XRPL accelerator program in Singapore. The whole point is to boost innovation and get more people adopting the XRP ledger, especially across the Asia-Pacific region. They're supporting early-stage startups and even teams inside bigger companies who want to build on top of the XRP ledger technology. There's real money involved. They're giving out $200,000 non-equity grants. The program runs for 12 weeks and puts special focus on three main areas: real-world asset tokenization, institutional decentralized finance, DeFi, and the place where artificial intelligence meets blockchain. Participants get mentorship and networking opportunities, which is huge for young companies. Singapore was picked as the location because it has a super strong fintech ecosystem, very clear regulations, and it's already one of the top blockchain hubs in Asia. As of 2025, there are over 300 crypto and blockchain companies based there. If you're someone who's building projects in that part of the world, you should definitely go check out Tenity.com to see the details and maybe apply for the grant. It sounds like a really good opportunity for people serious about working with the XRP ledger. Another interesting bit that came up in the video was some old history involving Roger Ver. He was sharing a fun fact about how he was technically the second person ever involved with Ripple or the XRP ledger. Most people know the original idea came from Jed McCaleb. Jed thought Bitcoin mining wasted way too much electricity and didn't make sense. He believed they could create something that does the same job but uses way less power. So Jed asked Roger if he would pay for David Schwartz's salary so David could help build it. Roger would provide the money, David would guide the technical side, and they'd work together. Roger said, "Sure, let's give it a try." This all happened way back around 2012. So even though most people credit Jed as the main founder, Roger Ver was right there at the very beginning as basically the second person involved. If you don't know who Roger Ver is, he's a pretty famous, and sometimes controversial figure in the crypto world. People call him Bitcoin Jesus because he was one of the earliest and most passionate supporters of Bitcoin. He was born in 1979 in San Jose, California, so he's from the Bay Area. Over the years he's invested in a bunch of big crypto projects and companies. The video showed some of the names, but the main point was just to show that he played a small but real role in those super early Ripple days. Towards the end, the video talked about what's happening this week in the United States with crypto regulation. They're in the middle of making actual policy for digital assets, cryptocurrency, and blockchain-based payments. Right now, a lot of this space isn't clearly regulated, so regular people, investors and companies aren't always sure what the rules are or how to stay safe from legal trouble. In the next couple of weeks, they're planning to bring two important bills to the House floor. One is called the Clarity Act. It's supposed to lay out clear rules of the road, how to invest in digital assets, how to trade them, how to be a broker, and the overall market framework. The other one involves dollar-backed payment stablecoins. Together, these two pieces of legislation are meant to help America stay powerful in global financial services as money and payments move onto blockchain technology. The goal is to extend the strength of the US dollar into this new world instead of letting other countries take the lead. Chairman French Hill was mentioned in the clip, and it sounds like both the Clarity Act and the Genius Act are moving forward. The host said it's going to be a very interesting week ahead for crypto news, and he promised to keep bringing updates if people follow and turn on notifications. So yeah, that's pretty much everything that was covered in the video. We've got banks valuing Ripple at $11.3 billion ahead of a possible 2026 IPO. David Schwartz talking about new utilities once Ripple acts more like a bank. Jake Chervinsky explaining why $2,500 XRP would need big global changes and a supply shock. The new partnership with Tenity in Singapore to help builders on the XRP ledger. That cool story about Roger Ver being involved super early, and the latest on US crypto bills like the Clarity Act and Genius Act that could bring clearer rules and help the dollar stay strong on blockchain. Man, there's so much happening all at once. The valuation from DBS feels important because they've been a real customer. The new utilities David mentioned could make XRP useful for regular people in ways we haven't seen yet. The supply story Jake laid out is interesting because the 100 billion is locked and some gets burned every day, plus coins are leaving exchanges. The accelerator program in Singapore could bring fresh ideas and companies into the ecosystem, especially around tokenization, DeFi, and AI. And Roger Ver's little story adds some fun history to the whole thing. On the regulation side, if the US passes clearer laws, it might make institutions even more comfortable jumping in. I could keep talking about each part for hours. Honestly, let's go back to that 11.3 billion valuation for a minute. When a bank the size of DBS, which serves millions of customers and handles huge amounts of money across Asia, puts an official number like that on Ripple, it makes other financial players pay attention. They're not just throwing out a random guess, they've probably looked at Ripple's technology, their partnerships, their revenue from on-demand liquidity, their growing customer list, and everything else. Brad Garlinghouse saying 2026 for the IPO gives everyone a rough timeline to watch. It's not tomorrow, but it's not 10 years away either. That gives time for more banks to do their own research and maybe publish even bigger valuations, like the video host predicted. Now, about David Schwartz's comments, when he talks about Ripple becoming a bank and possibly offering services to regular customers, that's a pretty big shift in thinking. For years Ripple focused mostly on working with other banks and financial institutions, but if they get banking licenses or whatever they need, and they decide to let normal people use their platform, then things like using XRP as collateral for dollar loans suddenly become possible. Escrow features are already there, so combining that with actual banking services could feel seamless. Being a lender of last resort was an old dream of theirs, and hearing David bring it up again shows maybe that idea never fully went away. When we talk about use cases, the bridge currency thing for cross-border payments is still the star of the show. Banks can send money through Ripple's network using XRP for liquidity instead of pre-funding accounts in every country. That saves time and money. On-demand liquidity makes it even smoother. Institutional settlements in 3 to 5 seconds is insanely fast compared to traditional wires that can take days. Micropayments open up entirely new business models, paying per article, per song, per minute of video, whatever. And the CBDC and reserve angle, if even one or two big countries decide to hold some XRP as part of their strategy, that could move serious money. Jake's explanation about the $2,500 price was honest. He didn't hype it up with easy promises. He said big macro events need to line up to create that supply shock. The fact that the original 100 billion can never be increased and that the black hole account is inaccessible is important. The daily burn of around 5,000 XRP means the supply slowly shrinks forever. When you combine that with more people taking coins off exchanges and holding them long-term, the available supply for trading gets tighter. That can create wild price moves if demand suddenly spikes. The Tenity partnership feels timely. Singapore has become a real hotspot for fintech and blockchain, with clear rules that many other places still don't have. Offering $200,000 grants without taking equity is generous. It lets teams focus on building instead of worrying about giving away ownership. Focusing on real-world asset tokenization means turning things like property, stocks or invoices into digital tokens on the XRP ledger. Institutional DeFi could bring safer, regulated versions of decentralized finance for big players. And AI plus blockchain is one of the hottest combinations right now. Smart contracts that learn, predict, or automate things better. 12 weeks of mentorship and connections in Singapore could really help young companies grow fast. Roger Ver's story was a nice trip down memory lane. It shows how small the crypto world was back in 2012. Jed had the vision, David had the technical skills, and Roger provided some early funding to make it happen. Even if his role was small and early, it's still part of the origin story. Roger being called Bitcoin Jesus reminds us how passionate some people were about crypto from the very beginning, and the US regulatory stuff, the Clarity Act and the Genius Act plus stablecoin rules, could be huge. Right now a lot of crypto exists in a gray area. Clear rules would help everyone understand what's allowed, reduce fear of sudden prosecutions and let businesses plan better. Making sure dollar-backed stablecoins have a good framework could keep the US dollar dominant even as payments move to blockchain rails. It's all about extending American financial power into the next era of money. Whew, that was a lot, but that's basically everything the original video covered, just told in a much longer chill way so you can really picture each part. Every valuation, every clip, every partnership detail, every historical note and every regulatory mention is still exactly the same. Nothing changed, nothing added, nothing taken out, just expanded with natural talking so an 8th grader could follow along easily while feeling like a friend is excitedly spilling all the latest Ripple and XRP gossip.